Okay, well, if you haven't picked up on it already from the cool decor that we have around, we are talking about movies in this series. I am in my mid 40s and female, so those of you who are around the same age and gender probably know that we grew up in the golden age of the OG Disney princesses. And we all had our one that we identified with the most. So I have a question for the ladies specifically, or the guys if you have a favorite. Who was your favorite Disney princess? Throw them out. Belle. I heard Belle. Who else? Jasmine. Jasmine. I saw that coming. What? Ariel. Ariel, Little Mermaid, yes. Who else? Mulan. Love that one. Love that one. Elsa. That's newer, but a good one. Anybody else? Okay. Well, it's probably no surprise if you know me at all. My mom is like laughing over there because she knows what I'm going to say. Mine was Belle from the Beauty and the Beast, the girl who everybody thought was super weird because all she wanted to do was read books and daydream about adventures all day. So she was basically my idol, exactly who I wanted to be. Plus, there was the library with like the rolly ladder thing. Oh my gosh, like for me, like forget the Prince Charming, like it was the library that was happily ever after, right? Craig's like, what? Craig's great too, but I still want that library. So when Brian sent me a list of movies to choose from for this summer at the movies series, it took me about 1.2 seconds to hit the reply button and say, Beauty and the Beast, please, I want that one. And so today we're going to dive into the 1991 Disney classic, Beauty and the Beast. Throughout the rest of the summer, we're going to take a look at some of Hollywood's biggest stories and most enduring movies. So we're going to see how oftentimes, whether intentionally or unintentionally, these movies reflect some really good news about who God is and how things work in his kingdom. Now, if you're joining us online today, unfortunately, the bad news is that we will not be able to stream the movie clips that we watch in the room today due to copyright law. But I'm going to do my best to make sure that you have enough context to follow along, and if you've seen the movie, you'll probably know which clips we're looking at. And yes, of course, there will be spoilers today and throughout the rest of this series. But honestly, this adaptation of Beauty and the Beast came out like 35 years ago, and it's based on a French novella from the 1700s, I think. So if you don't know how the story ends at this point, I feel like that's on you, not on me. So we're going to kick things off with a clip from the very beginning of the movie, where we get the backstory on how Beast came to be a beast. Check this out. Okay, so we start this movie with a young prince who's all wrapped up in himself and in appearances, which causes him to reject an old woman in need. And the consequences are swift and severe because she's not just some random old lady. She's an enchantress who curses him to live in the body of a beast until he can learn to really love and be loved. But because this prince is so vain and his whole life has been wrapped up in how he looks, he's certain that nobody's ever going to be able to look past this new beastly appearance. So he gives up, locks the doors to the castle, and he just sits there hiding away, growing more and more bitter every day. Beast is a prisoner to shame. We're going to talk a lot about shame today because this Disney classic paints a really powerful picture of the ways that shame can eat away at us from the inside out. But it also reflects some really good news about how shame can be overcome once and for all in God's kingdom. The good news we're going to talk about is this. The beast of shame keeps us hidden away in the dark, self-protective and lashing out at anyone who comes too close. But the beauty of God's love is in its transformative power to kill off shame at the root and bring light to the dark places inside of us. Before we jump in too deep, I think it's really important that we define exactly what shame is and isn't. And the go-to resource for this is Dr. Brené Brown. She's devoted her life to studying shame and its effects on us, both individually and relationally. And she says that shame is defined as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. Shame, it's important to note, is not the same as guilt. Those are two very different things. Guilt says, I did something bad. But shame says, I am bad. Guilt can be a really helpful experience for us, honestly. It causes us to own up to our mistakes, be accountable to other people, make amends when we can. When we experience guilt and we act on it, it can often restore relationships. But when we're experiencing shame, it destroys our relationships because it convinces us that we're so irredeemably bad that we should avoid everyone for their sake and for ours. Interestingly, researchers say that we are unable to actually understand and experience the concept of guilt until we're about 5 or 6 years old, but we begin to feel shame as early as 15 months, which is tragic. It means that before we're even able to understand our role in a mistake and know how to make things right, we are already being convinced by shame that we are unlovable. In the Disney version of Beauty and the Beast, shame has cursed not only this once handsome prince, but his whole household. And so all the castle staff, they've been turned into objects, and they hide away in their palace of shame all day long, convinced that the curse is never going to be broken because nobody could ever love them like this. Then something unexpected happens, right? A lost old man wanders into their palace, and Beast at this point, he's just fully identified with the shame. So rather than learning from his lesson with the old woman, he flies into a rage, he locks the old man up forever. But then the man's daughter comes looking for him, and she makes Beast a deal. She will switch places with her dad if he can go free. And the palace staff kind of perks up because they instantly recognize that this is the opportunity of a lifetime. If Belle and Beast can learn to love one another, the curse will be broken and everyone will be free, finally. So the entire staff of anthropomorphic household items start attempting to help Beast win over Belle. But those early attempts do not exactly go well. Let's take a look. One of the ways that shame works is that it keeps us locked up, lashing out at anyone who starts to get close to us. Hiding and lashing out are two of the telltale signs that we're experiencing shame. And we see this throughout the entire biblical narrative. When Adam and Eve make a mistake, what do immediately? They go hide. They cover themselves up. They start pointing fingers to deflect blame so no one's looking at them. Just like Belle and Beast did in this last scene. After Jesus had died and before he had resurrected, we see, or before they knew he had resurrected, the disciples are hiding in an upper room because they're scared and they're ashamed that they've just given their lives to something that's suddenly over. And then in another example, we see the woman at the well. The Bible tells us that Jesus met her there in the middle of the day. This detail was included because it shows us that she was avoiding everyone due to her shame. She knew she could go to the well to get water in the middle of the day because nobody was going to be there in the hottest part of the day. In all these situations, the beast of shame was keeping them hidden away in the dark, where they were protecting themselves and lashing out at anyone who came too close. But the story doesn't end there, because the beauty of God's love is that it finds us, and its transformative power is to kill off shame at the root and bring light to the dark places inside us. Which leads us to the next important truth that we see reflected in this movie. Love is the only thing powerful enough to eradicate shame. Love. Jesus comes and meets those scared disciples in the upper room. They're hiding out, and he comes and says, the good news is that their fear and doubt and shame are defeated forever through the power of his love for the world. He met the woman at the well in the heat of the middle of the day, and he showed her that he already knew the whole history of her life, and he loved her anyway. And he offered her a new life where she'd never thirst again. Jesus was willing to touch lepers, he shared meals with evil tax collectors, and he hung out with what the Bible calls other notorious sinners. This is the kind of stuff that Jesus was always about. He went to the dark places nobody else would go so that he could draw people out of the darkness and into the light of his kingdom love. Because love is the only thing powerful enough to overcome the destructive force that shame has in our lives. Now, over time, as Belle and Beast stumble their way through learning to be vulnerable with each other and open up, love begins to chip away at the shame that they're experiencing. And suddenly, as we'll see in this next clip, there may be something there that wasn't there before. stuck in my head all week. So when we find ourselves, like the beast, locked away in a prison of shame, how do we begin to let the light of love in? I think there are 3 ways that we can focus on today. And the first is we have to come out of hiding and be willing to name our shame. This is not a fun part, but we have to start by getting honest with God about our shame. Because the truth is, he already knows all of it, and he loves us anyway. Nothing is going to surprise him. But we don't stop there, because then we have to name our shame to another person. And I get it, that is terrifying, the thought of saying out loud the things that you've been hiding. It feels terrifying, it feels vulnerable, but it's also freeing. When we are willing to bring those things into the light, it's the first step on the path to freedom. James 5:16 says, "Confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed." Apparently, part of seeking healing is being willing to open up to each other about the things that we've done. And of course, we have to use wisdom in who we talk to about our shame, but find somebody whose presence looks and feels a lot like Jesus and be willing to try opening up to them. Get honest about the shame that you've been hiding so that it doesn't continue to stay in the dark where it just eats away at you and keeps you isolated. And once you've named the shame, then the second step is to let God's love lead you out of that darkness and into the light. Now that sounds really simple and kind of cliche. But guys, shame is such a powerful captor that it is just going to keep trying to pull you back in and whisper those lies over and over again that you're unlovable and you're unredeemable. But guys, what God says is true about you is the truest thing about you. And he calls you his much-loved, beloved child. In Romans 8, Paul tells us that now there isn't any condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. The law of the Spirit of life in Christ Jesus has set you free from the law of sin and death. Which means, guys, you are not defined by the worst thing you've ever done. You are not. That's the lie that shame is going to keep feeding you. But God's love has already defeated shame. It's already defeated those lies. So you are free to let go of the shame that you've held on to. Yes, ask for forgiveness. Yes, make amends where you can make amends. But learn to live in the truth that you are forgiven and you can forgive yourself. Your truest identity is as a child of God now. And the more time you spend with God, the more you let him remind you of these truths, the more the roots of shame in your life begin to wither and die out. And you'll begin to experience the kind of freedom and transformation that's available in his kingdom of love. The beast of shame is going to keep coming at us, trying to keep us hiding out in the dark, where we lash out at anybody who comes too close. But the beauty of God's love is that it has a transformative power to kill off shame at the root and bring light to the dark places inside of us. And the last way that I want to encourage you to let love in is my favorite. Embody God's love for others as an act of war against shame. Now, I did not choose those words lightly. In John 13, Jesus says, "I give you a new commandment, love each other. Just as I have loved you, so also you must love each other. This is how everyone will know that you're my disciples, when you love each other." Guys, we are made in God's image. And 1 John 4:16 tells us that God is love. The very defining quality of his character is love. So if we're made in his image, we are made to love like he loves. And Jesus came near and lived a life in human form to show us exactly what God's love could look like lived out by us. It's a love that courageously was willing to set aside things like self-protection and social norms, societal pressure and comfort, to go to the dark places to find and redeem everyone who'd been taken prisoner by shame. Jesus' love was not a light and fluffy kumbaya kind of love. It was an act of war against sin and shame that took him even into the darkness of death itself. So when Jesus says to us, "Love each other like I've loved you," that is not a small or fluffy thing to say. He's inviting us to love courageously, dangerously, with risk, because that's how the world would know that we're his. And that's how the world would be changed by his love. As God reshapes us into his image and teaches us to love like he loves, not only does our own shame die out, but we begin to embody his love for other people with that courageous, risky kind of love that invites them to leave behind their shame and hope that they could be transformed by love as well. That's when we become the unstoppable source of God's love that changes our world, that we talk about all the time. Now, I want to return to our movie one more time to take a look at the dramatic finale scene. First, I need to set the stage for this clip. Belle has found out that her father is sick, and Beast tells her that it's time for her to go to him. She's no longer his prisoner. Now, he knows that his time on this curse is running out. He's about to turn 21, and if she leaves now, the curse is going to remain in place forever. But he loves her too much to keep her captive there any longer and keep her away from her dad. So he lets her go, and she leaves. Now, meanwhile, the townspeople have found out about Beast, and they've decided collectively that the best thing they can do is go and kill him because they're not safe until he's dead. Belle shows up, she realizes what's happening, and she begins to passionately defend him. She says no matter how he looks, he is not dangerous. He's kind and caring and good. But ultimately, their fear and their self-protection went out. And so they decide to lock Belle and her father up, and they're going to go storm the castle and kill the Beast. Over time, Belle eventually manages to escape from where they've locked her up, and so she rushes to get back to the castle in time to save him, and that's where we're going to drop in on the movie. good memories there. I've watched that movie a whole bunch of times. I think my favorite part of Belle and Beast's happily ever after ending is how the love that they share doesn't just change them. It transforms everybody around them. I love that visual of how the light of love grew inside of Beast until it was literally like streaming out of his fingers and toes. And then eventually that spreads through the castle and the surrounding land, and it changes everybody and everything that it touches. Because this is a lot like what happens when we also let the light of God's love grow inside of us. When we let it in, let it conquer the shame that has kept us captive, and then we begin to embody that kind of dangerous love to other people and that kind of openness and vulnerability, it ends up affecting everybody that we encounter. It gives them hope that they too can live no longer as a prisoner of shame. They can experience that kind of transformative love from God. The beast of shame is always going to try to keep us hidden away in the dark, self-protective, lashing out at other people. But the beauty of God's love is in its transformative power to kill off that shame at its root and bring light not just to the dark places inside of us, but the dark places around us. Now, I'm going to give you a little peek behind the curtain of what it's like to be a member of this teaching team, because I think I speak for Brian and Jeremiah as well in saying that we are not experts at any of this. I certainly am not. We are fellow travelers on the same journey of trying to figure out day by day how to learn from Jesus, how to live and love the way that he does. We just happen to be the kind of people that volunteer to go first, and so we end up in these roles. And anytime I'm prepping for a message, even when it's something that I'm super passionate about or something that I feel like I've worked through with God years and years ago, it always seems that when I'm talking about something, here it comes, rearing its ugly head, and I get just mowed down by the struggle bus in the weeks leading up to the message. It's one of the ways God keeps me humble, I guess. I don't know. Also, I am an Enneagram 1, and for those of you who have taken the Enneagram classes with Heather, you know that ones have an inner critic that's very, very well developed and very good at shouting the lies of shame at us in our head all day long. So the last couple of weeks, if I'm honest, have been really rough internally, and I have been struggling with things from years ago. Now, I am not typically a beast-level lasher-outer, but I am an all-star hider-outer. I'm real good at that. And I could tell that my instinct had started to become avoiding people or just staying busy, pretending that I was fine. And thankfully, God had already been at work in my life, and he had prompted my family and I to begin putting some connection rhythms back into our days and our weeks. And so we've started to have some more meals with friends and family. I've had a couple phone calls with the kind of friends that have known you long enough and well enough to see when you're not telling the full truth of how you're doing. And those connection rhythms that God had already been at work creating in our lives have given me some opportunities to be more honest about the things that I'm struggling with and to experience being loved by these people that God's placed in my life in a way that embodies the love of Jesus for me so well and has for years. Though I have people in my life who don't run away or heap additional condemnation on me. They listen and they love me and they pray with and for me. And I'm so grateful for those people, for the way that they are part of how God is at work in my life. And I wonder how different our world would look if all of us as God's people decided that we were going to live that kind of life, that we were going to wage war on shame by embodying the love of Jesus everywhere we go and to everyone we meet. What if we intentionally created the kind of culture of like love and vulnerability where nobody felt like they had to hide in the darkness of shame as a way of life anymore? The only way that we're going to see that kind of culture happen is if each of us as individuals get serious about doing the hard work of like naming our shame and allowing God to transform us from the inside out. And then letting him teach us what it looks like to embody that love and freedom with other people. So I want you to think through what you need to do, how you need to respond to that good news. Is there shame you need to name to another person and to God? Can you look around right now and see that God has already been at work in your life in different ways, trying to lead you out of the darkness of shame that was keeping you hidden away, trying to lead you into his light? Are there people in your life that are coming to mind right now that you know are struggling and struggling alone. And they need you to show up courageously in the reality of the darkness that they've been carrying and embody God's love and light for them. As we all begin to practice this, imperfectly but regularly, over time it creates the kind of culture of vulnerability and transforming love where we start to see the shackles of shame fall off of people. And we all get to live as the much-loved children of God that he says we really are. In this kingdom epic story, God says we are the princes and princesses in the kingdom. And we get to live that way and lead that way in our world. So can we take a moment to just pray right now for God's kingdom to come and his will be done like that? Father, I'm so grateful for the ways that your love has waged war on shame in my own life and in the lives of people I love. I'm so grateful for the way that you're already at work in the world and in all of us to draw us out of darkness and into the light of your love. I pray that you would help us to have eyes that can see how you're at work, see how you're inviting us to get honest about where we really are and where we want to go. And I pray that you'd give us the courage to follow you into the light and to invite other people to come to you as well. Thank you for giving us the example of Jesus, who showed us what it looks like to love in ways that transform the world from the inside out. And I pray that we would all be about the work of continuing to learn from him what it looks like to live and love that way in our world. In your name, amen.